He's just an old man with a flag, until the SUVs rolled in. At 92 years old, Walter Hayes didn't walk fast anymore, but his steps carried the weight of history. That morning, wrapped in his worn coat, he clutched a folded American flag to his chest and made his way to the war memorial he had visited every week for decades. Only this time, something was different. The park was fenced off, the granite stones hidden behind chain-link barriers. A sign read, "Future Site of Heritage Condos." Walter's breath caught in his throat. He had fought for that land, buried friends beneath foreign skies so others could call this home. He wasn't trying to cause trouble. All he wanted was to place the flag near the rose bush that had always bloomed beside the memorial. A quiet gesture, a promise kept. But to Officer Kyle Miller, the young cop assigned to keep the area clear, Walter looked more like a trespasser than a patriot. "I said move along, old man," Miller barked, one hand hovering near his belt. "You're creating a public disturbance." Walter, his voice weathered by time, replied gently, "Just need a moment, son. I made a promise." When Walter stepped toward the fence, Miller grabbed his arm roughly. The flag nearly dropped. Gasps echoed from a growing crowd nearby, some filming, others stunned into silence. Another officer, older and clearly uncomfortable, murmured, "Take it easy, Miller. He's just trying to pay his respects." But Miller wasn't listening. He shoved Walter, wrestled for control, and reached for his cuffs. That's when Walter choked out 6 words that would change everything. "She gave it to me, before chosen." The name hung in the air like a thunderclap. And then came the rumble. 3 black SUVs rolled down the street without warning. No sirens, no hesitation. They stopped in perfect formation, blocking the road. Men in dark suits and earpieces stepped out. The tension shifted immediately. Officer Miller froze, his bravado draining. From the lead vehicle emerged a man in his 60s, polished shoes, crisp demeanor, and eyes that had seen both command and loss. He stepped toward Walter and said one name. "Mr. Hayes?" Walter looked up, eyes blinking away tears. The man's voice was familiar. The stranger turned to Officer Miller and said calmly but firmly, "Unhand him." That man was General Matthew C. Thompson, son of Walter's fallen commanding officer from the Korean War. Walter had carried that very flag, embroidered by General Thompson's mother, through the frozen hell of the Chaozin Reservoir. The same flag he'd been trying to lay at the memorial when Miller stopped him. In a voice like stone, Thompson declared, "Do you have any idea who this man is?" The crowd listened as the general told the story, how Walter had been wounded 3 times but stayed behind to protect the remnants of his unit, how he personally saved the general's father, how he visited Thompson's mother every year with that flag until she passed, and how this land, this memorial, existed because Walter had raised the funds himself. The response was immediate. The city halted redevelopment. Officer Miller was suspended. A new plaque was installed, telling the anonymous story of the flag and the quiet man who carried it. Walter never sought recognition. He simply kept a promise. But now, every Sunday when he visits the memorial, strangers stop to shake his hand. Some say thank you, others just nod. And he smiles, the flag still folded close, a silent reminder that sometimes all it takes is one act of quiet dignity to stir a nation's conscience. The flag he carried. When a city forgot its hero and a general remembered, Walter Hayes wasn't looking for attention. At 92, he walked with a cane, spoke softly, and lived alone in a small 1-bedroom apartment on the edge of town. Every Sunday morning, he made the same quiet journey, 2 blocks down Maple Street, left past the bakery, then slowly up the path to the town's war memorial. That day, like every year on the anniversary of the Battle of Chaozin Reservoir, he came carrying the same folded American flag he'd held since 1950. It wasn't just cloth, it was a promise. He never expected the memorial to be fenced off. Chain-link barricades surrounded the monument. Heavy machinery idled behind warning signs. A glossy banner read, "Future Home of Heritage Towers, Luxury Living." Walter paused, heart sinking. His legs trembled not from age but from disbelief. The land his friends had died for, now being sold off for condos? Still he pressed forward. He had no intention of trespassing. He only wanted to place the flag beside the rose bush he and his unit had planted decades ago. But Officer Kyle Miller, a young cop in his late 20s, saw an old man breaking the rules. "This area is closed. Move along, sir," he barked. Walter's grip on the flag tightened. "Son," he said, "this land, it matters." "You're making a scene," Miller snapped. "You and that rag don't belong here." With that, he grabbed Walter's arm. The flag nearly fell. Some in the crowd looked on, some filmed, but no one spoke. Walter staggered, catching himself on the fence. Pain spread across his chest. Then came a name, a whisper, barely audible. Chosen. Everything changed in 6 minutes. Black SUVs rolled in, fast and silent. They blocked the street with swift precision. Men in suits stepped out, but they weren't city officials. They moved like soldiers. One man, tall, gray-haired, and calm, stepped forward. "Walter Hayes?" he asked. Walter looked up. Recognition bloomed slowly. "Matt Thompson?" General Matthew C. Thompson, son of Captain Roy Thompson, Walter's commanding officer at Chosen. The same man who died in Walter's arms 73 years ago. The flag? Roy's wife Helen had embroidered it herself and given it to Walter before deployment. Walter had carried it every day through Korea, then laid it at Roy's grave every year. Thompson turned to Officer Miller. "Unhand him. Now." "This is a police matter," Miller stammered. "Not anymore," the general said. "Do you know who this man is?" The crowd fell into stunned silence as Thompson told the story. Walter Hayes, Medal of Honor recipient, 3 bullet wounds, held the line at Chosin, saved dozens, fundraised to build this memorial. The very man being manhandled like a criminal was the reason it existed. "That flag," Thompson said, his voice cracking, "was given to Walter by my mother. He kept it safe while he saved my father's life. And you call it a rag?" Miller said nothing. His face was pale. Officer James, his partner, quietly unclipped the handcuffs. The general turned to the fence. "Open it." His men moved fast, clearing the way. Walter, arm in arm with Thompson, stepped through. He laid the folded flag gently by the rose bush, knelt slowly and closed his eyes. Silence wrapped the scene like a blanket. What happened next rewrote the future. The redevelopment project was halted by city order. An investigation uncovered unethical contracts between developers and council members. The mayor issued a formal apology. Officer Miller was suspended. All officers in the department were enrolled in mandatory veteran sensitivity training. Walter refused publicity. He didn't want interviews. But he accepted one thing, that General Thompson install a new plaque. It told the story of a nameless hero of Chosen and a sacred flag carried through war, then brought back to honor the fallen. Every Sunday, Walter still visits the memorial. Now folks stop to shake his hand. They don't all know the details, but they know he's someone worth remembering. In the rose bush, it's thriving, because some promises never fade. And sometimes it takes the roar of black SUVs to remind a city what honor truly looks like. In the days that followed the public confrontation at the memorial, the small town buzzed with rumors and reflections. Most people couldn't stop talking about the sight of those black SUVs, the imposing man in the suit, now widely known to be General Mark Thompson, and the quiet, frail veteran he had come to defend. News outlets picked up the story, and though Arthur Jenkins' name remained unpublicized by his request, his actions and the significance of that tattered flag became symbols of something much deeper. Behind the scenes, General Thompson wasted no time. True to his word, he met with the mayor, the city council, and the chief of police. Within a week, the redevelopment plan that had threatened to bulldoze the memorial was not only halted, but thrown out entirely. Legal contracts with the developers were scrutinized, revealing multiple ethics violations and backdoor deals. Several members of the council faced formal investigations, and the scandal sent shockwaves through the community. For many residents, the memorial had become a touchstone of reflection and loss. To see it reduced for the sake of luxury condos had ignited a quiet fury. The public sentiment was firmly on Arthur's side, and General Thompson knew how to turn that momentum into lasting change. He helped the city launch a public-private initiative to refurbish and expand the war memorial instead. A team of local veterans, historians, and architects came together to design a space that honored all generations of service, complete with new landscaping, lighting, seating, and an educational plaque. The rose bush where Arthur had knelt with the embroidered flag became a focal point, lovingly preserved and protected. Meanwhile, officers Miller and Cates were summoned before a disciplinary board. Cates, who had shown visible discomfort during the arrest, cooperated fully and accepted responsibility for his inaction. He was suspended without pay and ordered to undergo extensive retraining in veteran sensitivity, de-escalation tactics, and community policing. Officer Miller faced a harsher outcome. His behavior, caught on multiple phones and internal body cam footage, left little room for interpretation. He was relieved of duty pending further investigation and charged with unnecessary use of force against a senior citizen. Yet through it all, Arthur Jenkins remained quietly dignified. He never spoke to reporters. He turned down every interview, every chance to capitalize on the attention. When asked by General Thompson why he didn't want his name on the plaque, Arthur simply replied, "The men who didn't come back deserve the spotlight more than I do." At 92, Arthur still walked with a cane and moved slowly, but his steps had regained some steadiness. He became a familiar face in the town once more. No longer the forgotten old man, but a figure of quiet respect. People who had once passed him on the street without notice now stopped to say hello. Children pointed him out to their parents. Veterans saluted him. Even Officer Cates, after his retraining and return to duty, stopped by Arthur's modest home on weekends. Sometimes he brought groceries. Other times he just sat with the veteran and listened. They talked not about the incident, but about service, legacy, and the things that mattered. Cates even brought his young son once, hoping to help the boy understand what real honor looked like. Back at the memorial, the new plaque was unveiled on a cool autumn morning with the entire community gathered. It didn't name Arthur directly, but those who had witnessed that day knew the truth. The inscription read, "To the silent guardians of freedom, who carried more than flags and bore more than pain, your sacrifices will never be forgotten." As the ceremony concluded, Arthur stood at the edge of the crowd, a new flag gently pressed against his chest. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. The warm sun bathed the memorial grounds, and the roses, especially that one bush, were in a full bloom. For the first time in many years, Arthur Jenkins felt truly seen, truly remembered. And somewhere in the silence, he knew Helen's embroidered flag had found its rightful resting place, not just in the soil beneath the rose bush, but in the collective heart of a community that had nearly forgotten what sacrifice looked like, and finally remembered just in time. Arthur Jenkins, 92, wasn't trying to start a protest. He wasn't there to shout or make a that morning, frail but determined. Arthur clutched a neatly folded American flag as he stood before the fenced-off war memorial, a place that had once been sacred ground. A new construction project had sealed off the park, the city calling it Re. As he stepped forward, hoping to find just a patch of grass to lay the flag, a young police officer stopped him. "You're trespassing," the officer snapped. Arthur tried to explain, voice shaking, that the flag was a gift from a fallen friend's wife, something he had brought here every. The officer grew impatient. Rough hands grabbed Arthur's thin arms, wrenching them behind his back. The flag slipped from his grasp. The moment was cruel, humiliating. Passers-by watched, some. Then came the deep rumble of tire. 3 black SUVs screeched to a halt, blocking the street. Out stepped several sharply dressed men. Leading them was a tall figure with a calm authority. General Mark Thompson, retired. He walked past the semis. Arthur's eyes with General Thompson. The crowd gasped. Phones lowered, hearts, with quiet reverence, General Thompson helped Arthur to his knees beside a bloom. In the weeks that followed, the redevelopment was halted. The memorial was preserved. Officer Miller publicly. Respect isn't just a jest. Arthur Jenkins wasn't asking for attention. He wasn't trying to be a hero again. He simply wanted to remember. And in that quiet act of remembrance, he reminded an entire town and a nation what honor really means. It's not about loud declarations. It's about promises kept, dignity upheld, and the cool. If this story moved you, comment "I remember" below. Share this with someone who believes in honoring our heroes. And don't forget to subscribe for more true stories that prove dignity, courage, and service never grow old.